Welcome to Lessons in Leadership. Steve Adubato with Mary Gamba. Mary, listen, we're gonna go into this interview that I did with Dr. Vince Hafeli. Hafeli, right, Mary?
Hafeli, yep, Dr. Vince Hafeli.
He's the president of Ajax Paving Industries. It's a conversation about mental health in the construction industry and the suicide rate in the construction industry being absurdly and dangerously high. Did you even know that? I didn't.
I had no idea, and that's why it's something our good friend Bernie Corrigan brought to us over at IBEW, because it is something that we need
Local
to shine
102, Local 102.
Yes, Local 102, thank you. And it's something we need to shine a light on. We need to make sure that our leaders really talk about mental health, reducing the stigma, and making it something that is more, hey, you need help, say something, and we're going to support you. And you're not going to be seen as weak or less than because you're raising your hand and saying that you need some help.
And along those lines, and when it comes to wellness, Lessons in Leadership 2.0, the tough stuff, actually has a chapter on wellness and leadership. And Mary, there's a significant portion of that chapter where I write about mental health, and I disclose that I've had some struggles and challenges in that regard. And just being able to
have we all. And that's the thing. I think the more that people talk about it, that you talk about it, the more that we can get it out there. We've all spoken to mental health professionals, and no different than if you have an ache or pain physically in your body, mental health, you need to address in that same way. So,
yeah, the stigma, the let's not talk about it, it makes you weak, doesn't help anybody. And it actually is wrong. Leaders struggle, we all struggle. Let's just talk about it honestly. Let's check this interview out with Vince. Steve Adubato here. We're now joined by Dr. Vince Hafeli, who is president of Ajax Paving Industries of Florida, LLC. Good to see you, Vince.
Good to see you. I'm excited about being here today.
You got to tell us about the organization you run.
We're a family-owned organization, originated in Michigan in '51, went to Florida in '81. It's now owned by the Horan family as of 2022. We're about 600 employees, 8 asphalt plants, 4 construction offices, and probably the second largest paving contractor in the state of Florida.
Vince, you were recommended to us through our good friend Bernie Corrigan. Bernie is always looking out for leaders in different industries that he thinks would be compelling on the air for us. So I want to thank him for that. Talk to us about mental health and what you call transformational leadership. Talk about that, the connection between mental health and transformational leadership.
Well, in our industry, I landed on mental health while I was doing my dissertation at the University of South Florida, where my research began on suicide in construction. And then it kicked over where I began learning more about the mental health side. In our industry, when you combine construction and mining extraction, we're the highest industry in the U.S. when it comes to suicide.
Why do you think that is, Vince?
If you go do a literature review, there's a bunch of documented reasons. Stressful hours, work days and the night to days, sleep deprivation, fluctuation in income levels. That's what the documented research shows. I think my research revealed something different. I interviewed industry executives from across the nation, leaders of construction organizations, and there was only one thing that 100% of those organizations agreed upon, ones that had begun addressing mental health and suicide awareness. The only thing they agreed upon was that the change had to begin at the top. Addressing mental health and suicide had to begin at the top. The leaders of the organization have to fully support it. Otherwise, it tends to fail. Some of the companies that did agree that it needed to begin at the top originally rolled it out and through either their safety department or their HR department, and it failed. And when they relaunched with the support of leadership, it succeeded. So I think in our industry, we've long had that macho man belief. Don't talk about emotions, feelings, check them at the gate and leave them at home. We don't have time for that around here. We have enough issues without you bringing your own problems to work. So what I've been doing the last I guess 14, 15 months now, is traveling nationally. I've even gone as far away as Aberystwyth, Wales, and the United Kingdom and talked. I've been to the Virgin Islands, trying to educate leaders on addressing the topic. So how does that tie into transformational leadership? Well, we're trying to transform an industry. We're trying to transform an industry where we'll encourage men to say, hey, I'm struggling today. And I say men because nationally, the suicide rate in our industry is about 14 per 100,000. Yet for men, that number is about 53 in construction. Yet for females in our industry, that number is about 10. So that's why
Vince, let me jump in here. You've mentioned several times it has to come from leadership. Be specific. Identify a couple of strategies, actions that leaders need to take to set the tone and to be more supportive and to create a culture that for those who are struggling with mental health issues, they feel comfortable enough, confident enough that they can put it out there and there's going to be help. Because people are going to wonder, like, what are we talking about? What do people need? Please, Vince.
I think to begin with, you have to be vulnerable. As a leader, you have to be able to stand up in front of your team and admit that you're no different than they are. We're all skin and bones. We're all human beings. We all have struggles. Not every leader, such as myself, can stand up and share a story about a suicide attempt or share a story about a mental illness struggle. But all leaders have something that they've gone through. I remember several months ago, I did an interview with a gentleman, and when he finished, he said, I got to go back and talk to my employees. I had some heart issues here a few months ago and we hit it. And I asked him, why did you hide that? And he said, well, we didn't want them to know that I was struggling. We didn't want them to know I was going through a health issue because they needed to know that I was strong.
That's right.
He said, but now suddenly I realized that I probably should have shared with them because it probably would have made the team even come to me more because we're a supportive and caring culture, he said. But I felt like the organization needed to be supportive and caring of them. And I didn't realize that to have full circular support, that I needed to allow the organization to support me when I may have been going through some struggles. I never thought about sharing my vulnerability. I never felt about sharing my weaknesses.
Vince, you opened up to your people about your own struggles?
I did. On July 16th, 2021, at a weekly meeting with all of our key department heads in the company that lead divisions, I told them on January 3rd, 2022, we would begin addressing mental health at Ajax. I explained to them the research I was doing, some of the numbers I just presented to you, and told them that even though we were a great culture, we could be better. And for whatever reason that day, I decided to tell those 16 people. And I shouldn't even really say I decided to tell them because I didn't have any previous thought about doing it. I didn't go into the meeting with any idea that I would, because from the night in 2007 when I was going to end my life until that day in 2021, only 3 people knew of that night, what would eventually become my ex-wife, my son, and myself. But for whatever reason, I told those 16 people that day. And then on January 3rd, 2022, I got up on the stage at our annual health and safety meeting and then stood up in front of several hundred employees and told them we're going to begin addressing mental health and suicide in the organization. I told them I had been there before. I told them that we would go about the change in our culture slowly. A phrase that I use to them is, I know men will drink out of a straw, but you're not going to drink out of a fire hose. So we have to be careful about flooding you with a lot of information about mental health because there is a stigma that goes with those words.
Yeah.
People don't run toward them, they run away from them.
Hey, Vince, for anyone who watches this right now, I have a strong sense that your vulnerability, your leadership, your openness, your candor, the fact that you care deeply about others and their mental health and their well-being is going to make a difference for a lot of folks. And for that reason, I just want to say thank you very much for joining us and sharing your story and being the leader that you are every day. Thank you, Vince.
Well, thank you.
You got it. I'm Steve Adubato. That's our friend Vince. Be back after this. This edition of Lessons in Leadership is made possible by the Buccino Leadership Institute at Seton Hall University, Prager Metis, Valley Bank, the International Union of Operating Engineers Local 825, the North Ward Center, the New Jersey Sharing Network, the Helix, Horizon Blue Cross Blue Shield of New Jersey, Fedway Associates Inc., Port Authority of New York and New Jersey, Veolia, Resourcing the World, Choose New Jersey, and Seton Hall University, showing the world what great minds can do since 1856.
This is Mary Gamba. If you want more leadership tips and tools, log on to stand-deliver.com. That's stand-deliver.com.
Promotional support for this edition of Lessons in Leadership with me, Steve Adubato, and my colleague Mary Gamba has been provided by NJ.com, NJBIA and New Jersey Business Magazine, CIANJ and Commerce Magazine, and the Meadowlands Chamber and Meadowlands Media. Lessons in Leadership would like to thank our newest sponsors who make our programming possible, including the Helix, Horizon Blue Cross Blue Shield of New Jersey, and the Port Authority of New York and New Jersey. We're now joined by Amanda Tibok, who's Executive Director of the Sharing Network Foundation. Good to see you, Amanda.
Good morning, Steve, Mary. So great to see the both of you.
Great to see you. The website will be up for the foundation. Tell us exactly what the Sharing Network Foundation is, because it's really important.
It sure is important, Steve. The Sharing Network Foundation was created to support the work of New Jersey Sharing Network, who you've been partners with for a long time. New Jersey Sharing Network is New Jersey's organ recovery agency. And simply put, we recover and place donated organs and tissue for the purpose of transplant for the New Jersey residents who are waiting for that second chance at life. The foundation's role is to facilitate the gratitude that our families have for the care that they receive both at the bedside and for transplant recipient families, that second chance at life that they did receive. And we do that through philanthropic giving. The funds raised through our foundation support clinical advancement and research in our state-of-the-art laboratory, family support programs for donor families and transplant recipient families alike. And then most importantly, the public education component, educating people about the importance of saying yes to registering to be an organ donor. And that's what it's all about.
And the Say Yes, Save Lives, the graphic come up as well. That's a campaign, right, Amanda?
It is. So we call that a thematic goal here at New Jersey Sharing Network. Our senior leadership team works very hard to create these rally cries, if you will, for our staff and our community to rally around. Our current theme is Say Yes, Save Lives, as you mentioned, and it has various meanings. Say yes in regards to the registry, the importance of registering to be an organ donor. In fact, that will be the messaging on this year's 5K t-shirt. Next to our sunflower, which, as you know, is a big icon of New Jersey Sharing Network. But secondly, for our internal staff and our volunteers, it's about saying yes to going above and beyond the job description, going to help your neighbors, saying yes to, maybe dropping off a coffee for a fellow staff member who's on site, supporting families, saying yes to whatever it might be that we can, support that next family and ultimately give someone else a second chance at life.
So disclose a couple of things. Number one, Carolyn Welch, the CEO, is a trustee of the Caucus Educational Corporation, and also the Sharing Network, longtime underwriters of what we do in terms of our public awareness programming around organ and tissue donation. I say yes to Mary Gamba jumping in right here.
That was a great segue, Steve. Great segue. Amanda, talk a little bit about leadership, partnerships, collaboration. You and I talked a little bit offline just about how important it is. No money, no mission. Steve and I talk about that all the time, always looking to raise money for our own nonprofit on this end. How important are the partnerships with your volunteers, your trustees, the donors? Talk about that connection between leadership and relationship building.
Sure. It is so important, Mary, and relationships, partnerships, it's really at the core of what we do here at the Sharing Network Foundation. When you think about philanthropy, giving, there's really a well-known kind of cycle of how gifts and support is received, and it always starts with creating an extraordinary experience. You have that extraordinary experience, you build the relationship with whether it's a volunteer, a board member, all the way to accepting their support, whether it's by their time, their financial giving, their support in their community, all the way to stewarding them and saying thank you. And that's a big part of what we do. But that creating the extraordinary experience to me is all about the relationship. It's about how we can kind of bring the mission front and center for those that we serve, but also for our partners, thinking, what can they get out of this partnership as well? Certainly the mission is why we're all here. We want to save and enhance lives through the miracle of organ and tissue donation. But, other than that, what can we do for our partners to get even more out of this partnership for them, whether that be employee engagement, opportunities for more volunteers to come to events like our 5K celebration of life, and education. We love to visit different organizations to do education around organ and tissue donation.
Amanda, let me follow up on that, because Mary and I, two things. Number one, speaking about partnerships, together with our partner, Jackie Tricarico, I'll be joining the 5K is coming up, and we look forward to that every year. We'll be doing a series of interviews with all kinds of folks who are connected to the gift of life and the sharing network. But Mary and I talk about this all the time. We talk about, quote, strategic relationship building, meaning it's for a lot of people, they think relationship building is organic. It just happens. And in a lot of our leadership research and work, we argue, hey, listen, it's not always organic and it just happens. You have to be consistent, strategic, you have to be persistent about it. And someone says, well, then aren't you manipulating a relationship? And I'm like, no, because it just doesn't happen by chance. Where did you learn this relationship building thing? I'm fascinated by that.
Yeah, that's an interesting question. When I think of relationship building, you're absolutely right. There's a fine line between what's organic and what's, innate in someone that makes them a good connector, if you will. But then there also is the strategy behind it. How often are you following up with someone? How, genuine are you being in your interest and what they bring to the table, right?
And hold on one second a minute. Or is it just transactional? I'm trying to get something from you, so that's it. When I get something from you, we're done. That's not a relationship that matters. Go ahead.
It sure isn't. And, here at New Jersey Sharing Network, and specifically within the foundation, relationships, like I said, it's the heart of what we do. Philanthropy is all about the give and the take. And so, when our team focuses on, sponsorships and partnerships, it's all about staying connected, and, having those conversations about what's meaningful to our supporter, whether it's, visibility on a t-shirt, or whether it's having us come in for, or offering them in for a tour, or offering our meeting space. But other than that, for me, it's kind of boils down to friendship. I pride myself in being real, in and out of the office. Who I am at home is who I am here at New Jersey Sharing Network. And I've always been about connecting. It's always been something, that's kind of innate in me.
That's you. That's who you are.
It is. I come from a big Italian family, so it's natural.
Hold on.
There you go. You said it.
You went there. Are you saying, Amanda, that those of us who happen to have parents, grandparents, other generations who came from Italy, mostly southern Italy because it was so poor and people were coming to the United States because there was no work there, are you saying that Italian Americans are better at relationships?
Certainly not. All I can speak about is
I'm not going to get you in trouble.
I don't even know. I don't know where to go from here.
No, I'm teasing. I'm joking.
I actually have a very important question to ask.
Okay.
If I may jump in, how do you like that segue, that transition?
Amanda, our relationship, Mary basically shuts me down and says, I'm going to do something serious right now. Go ahead, Mary.
Steve was asking about where your passion came from, and sure, the Italian-American background, definitely interesting. You also shared offline with me just the fact that you had studied dance at college. And Steve and I on Lessons in Leadership often talk about the connection between sports and leadership. And can you share a little bit about how that dance background, how you apply it to your positive attitude, your grit, your resilience, and just simply your approach as a leader at the Sharing Network Foundation?
Yes, absolutely. So, I've been with the Sharing Network for 12 years now. I started in 2012. This is actually my 12-year anniversary coming up this month in April. And before that, I held various, roles at the Sharing Network, our marketing team. I worked very closely with our volunteers. But prior to that, I was fresh out of college. And as you said, Mary, I studied dance. I can't remember a time when my life didn't include dancing. It's something I have a passion for. And as you said, I think it translates so perfectly, when thinking about leadership. There's a lot of team building, as you can imagine, that goes into dancing. And while a lot of my peers at the time were busy studying for midterms and finals, I would do the same for my academic courses, but I would also be rehearsing, late at night for our mid and end of year performances. And so, when you think about performing, I spent a lot of time on stage. You have the opportunity to connect with, not only your fellow dancers, but also with your audience. And it's a unique opportunity to kind of get to know yourself in a way where you understand, both internal reflection and how others perceive you. And you mentioned the grit, the perseverance that comes along with it. Of course, those are all things that are part of it. But really it comes down to, for me, is authenticity. And, in a leader, as a dancer, no one cares if you're perfect. It needs to come from the heart. It needs to be real, or you're going to lose your audience. And, I feel the same way here about the foundation, our generous board, our amazing staff. We're all part of a huge team. And, I think I owe it to them and to myself, to just be authentically me each and every day.
Amanda, I never thought about the connection between dance, leadership, teamwork, but that's an interesting way to connect things. And to you and your colleagues and partners at the Sharing Network and Sharing Network Foundation, we look forward to being there. We're taping this the beginning of April, so the 5K is coming up. We will be there. We look forward to those interviews, because for those who have followed that series that we've been doing, that public awareness effort for so many years, the stories of people who are survivors, family members of those who gave the gift of life, those who received the gift of life, they themselves and family members of those who received the gift of life, is extraordinary. It's beyond all the statistics, the facts, the figures. It's about people's lives. It is about saving lives. And so to you and your colleagues, I want to thank you for the work you're doing every day. We appreciate it, Amanda.
Thank you, Steve. We appreciate your partnership and helping us get the message out.
It's our honor. We'll be right back right after this. This edition of Lessons in Leadership is made possible by the Buccino Leadership Institute at Seton Hall University, Prager Metis, Valley Bank, the International Union of Operating Engineers Local 825, the North Ward Center, the New Jersey Sharing Network, the Helix, Horizon Blue Cross Blue Shield of New Jersey, Fedway Associates Inc., Port Authority of New York and New Jersey, Veolia, Resourcing the World, Choose New Jersey, and Seton Hall University, showing the world what great minds can do since 1856.
This is Mary Gamba. If you want more leadership tips and tools, log on to stand-deliver.com. That's stand-deliver.com.
Lessons in Leadership would like to thank our newest sponsors who make our programming possible, including the Helix, Horizon Blue Cross Blue Shield of New Jersey, and the Port Authority of New York and New Jersey. Welcome back to Lessons in Leadership. Steve Adubato with my colleague Mary Gamba. Hey, Mary, listen, I want to talk about leadership and courage. So, couldn't care less what your politics, anyone watching right now, Mary, no disrespect, couldn't care less about your politics.
Mm-hmm.
Your politics and mine don't always match up, but our leadership matches up. Is that fair?
That is very fair.
This is an extraordinary book. It's a book by Liz Cheney. Liz Cheney, it's called Oath and Honor, a Memoir and a Warning. Don't care who you voted for in 2020. Don't care who you're going to vote for in 2024. Here's the deal. Liz Cheney, in my book, is a courageous leader. Why? She stood up and this is a book you want to read. It is a leadership book, less about politics, more about leadership. She stood up, and as a Republican out in Wyoming, she said, I'm not going to buy into a lie. She said that what happened on January 6th was an insurrection and it was horrific. She said things that she knew would turn a significant number of Republicans who are supportive of the former president against her. She lost her seat in the United States Congress because of what she did. She knew that what she was doing would lose her a seat in Congress. Her political career was over in that moment. Translation. Sometimes, Mary, leadership, and this isn't about Democrats, Republican, Trump, or Biden. You make the choice, folks. It's about doing what you believe is right, even if others disagree, but knowing that doing it is going to be hurtful to your career, be it politics or media or whatever it is. That's a side of leadership that doesn't get talked about a lot. Leadership and having courage. Doesn't mean everyone agrees with you. Clearly they don't. Courage. Go ahead.
What's interesting is I agree with you completely that at times you do have to have courage. You need to take a risk. I wonder for the average person who doesn't have a safety net, who may not have that ability to say what they feel, do what they say, really stand by their beliefs, their morals, because sometimes in everyday people, if we were to do that and simply walk away, where would our livelihood be, right? So it is an interesting, I think it depends on.
Hold on, Mary, how's it walking away? She wanted to stay in Congress. She was a leader in the Republican Party in Congress. She lost her leadership seat, and then she lost her seat in Congress. So you could say fall back. Yeah, financially, no one's going to hold a fundraiser for Liz Cheney. She's fine.
Right.
But do you mean financial? This is interesting.
Financially, I'm talking solely financially right now, because there's been people that we've come in contact with in our orbit. We've done executive coaching for 2 decades together. And I've done coaching, you've done coaching, and there's been people that we've coached that literally at banking institutions or major hospitals and everything in between, who wanted to take that risk, who wanted to stand up and be like, this is not working for me. Or I believe
you're saying say and do what they think is right, but you're saying if they risk their job, that's their family, that's their mortgage, that's their rent, that's
so
college tuition.
I think there's a fine line. I agree that that grit, that courage that you're talking about is way needed. I'm just saying that for the average middle class person, middle to upper class, or it doesn't matter where you fall. Yeah, working class. The stakes are a little bit higher. That's all I have to say. I know we don't have much time left, but yeah. But it's interesting. It's definitely fascinating.
Let's pick this up. And again, do yourself a favor, whether you like Trump, like Biden, doesn't matter. If you're interested in leadership, this book to me, and we're actually, our production company at the Caucus Educational Corporation, our producers are trying to track down Liz Cheney. And I know she's done a lot of interviews, but I promise you, when we get Liz Cheney, it'll be a different conversation. And it'll be largely less about politics, frankly, and more about leadership and the dysfunction of those who are supposed to be our political leaders who can't get anything done. That's it. Mary, I'm off my soapbox.
Get off your soapbox, and we'll catch you next time here on Lessons in Leadership. How'd you like that for an outro?
Wow, that's leadership. See you next time. This edition of Lessons in Leadership is made possible by the Buccino Leadership Institute at Seton Hall University, Prager Metis, Valley Bank, the International Union of Operating Engineers Local 825, the North Ward Center, the New Jersey Sharing Network, the Helix, Horizon Blue Cross Blue Shield of New Jersey, Fedway Associates Inc., Port Authority of New York and New Jersey, Veolia, Resourcing the World, Choose New Jersey, and Seton Hall University, showing the world what great minds can do since 1856.
This is Mary Gamba. If you want more leadership tips and tools, log on to stand-deliver.com. That's stand-deliver.com.
Promotional support for this edition of Lessons in Leadership with me, Steve Adubato, and my colleague Mary Gamba has been provided by NJ.com, NJBIA and New Jersey Business Magazine, CIANJ and Commerce Magazine, and the Meadowlands Chamber and Meadowlands Media.